So over the years, I've been trying to get you to recognize and release the self-contraction or the egoic push of identity into everything that you live, feel, and experience. So my work has been the opposite of what you've been trying to do. And so a lot of times we've come to blows. And then I noticed if I just walk away and leave you alone for a while, you create your own special me spiritual identity. And I come back and I say, where'd you get that? If you're really spiritual, you won't have a sense of that, of any of that. So where'd you get it from? And that's the competition factor, right? You get it from competing with each other and saying, oh, I read this teaching, oh, I understand this, or this is my process, or blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And you go about your business, and you have this sense that you have to make progress, and you are making progress, and you declare you're making progress, and the more confidence you have in declaring you're making progress, and you look at other people and say, oh, they're not making the progress that I'm making, and they don't know what I know, then I just come along and go, hi. What's all this? You haven't even gotten on the journey yet. You haven't even recognized and released the ego yet, once. To be making real progress, there's an authenticity and a humility that becomes a wide open heart. And I assure you that the process doesn't allow any of that wide open heart to be able to sustain meanness, grumpiness, sadness, cruelty, superiority, righteousness, all the common traits of an ego who's trying to get somewhere and trying to get fulfilled, right? So I was considering over the years hearing all your stories and how you reinvent your spiritual life again and again, and how well you're doing and what process you have. And I'm like, don't you get tired of that story and that game? Mm-hmm. So what is it really like to be on the spiritual path and not be in that game of creating an identity of progress and process and special me and I'm getting somewhere and all that? What is it? What would you be like with any of that? Would you still be on the spiritual path? Or you wouldn't know where you are, would you? Mm-hmm. That's the spiritual path. Yeah. When you don't know where you are, but you are simple, humble, with an open heart, authentic. And so if you're authentic, you're not really trying to compete or compare yourself with other people. That's the world of ego. In the world, everybody's competing for some slots. And those are slots of success. So not everyone can be a success, so you have to compete for it. And so how do you compete? Well, one way is to actually really work hard at something and learn how to do it well. Another way is just to give people's perceptions of your ability and your success and why you're right and why they're wrong. And most people do that. Most people are not willing to work hard enough to actually succeed at something. Because that kind of work, in a way, makes you humble too. When you work hard at something and you endure something, and you eventually, over a long period of time, succeed at accomplishing it, that creates an authentic experience. And you don't have a lot of pride and a lot of ego. And you don't have all those negative emotions. You just have what's simply a very humble success. You don't blow your success into big terms, big special me, a big sign of a successful life. You simply have endured and worked hard and accomplished. So over the years, you worked in the world because you've all had jobs, and you also worked at spiritual life. So if you have succeeded in having some successful humility at your job, it's because you endured and adapted and did the work that you had to learn and figured it out and got up there each day and went ahead and did it. And eventually you are respected by other people for being a good worker and a good person at the job, and you're respected. Now, in the spiritual life, how do you work at it? That's the question. Well, you can't just keep reading teachings and then somehow identifying emotionally with them. If, like I said, a real spiritual experience doesn't allow you to be the ego that you are, it doesn't allow it. So if you can continue in similar patterns of egoity, of asserting your ego and your special me and your spiritual process, if you can keep asserting that whatever you think is going on isn't spiritual life yet. What is spiritual life? Spiritual life is to receive and live the transmission of the open heart. So how do you do that? How do you stay and live in that, since you do have that transmission? Well, you're unable to what?
Assert separateness.
Assert separateness. And so the assertion of separateness is the ability to recognize and release the ego, not doing the ego. There's two eyes, right? There's the false eye, there's the ego eye, and the real eye, the sacred true identity of everyone. The sacred true identity doesn't have to do anything to realize. Why? Because it's already true. It's already there. It already is what is. The false ego, the secondary eye that everybody lives with and suffers, is what has to be recognized and released. You don't have to get to the spiritual. You have to undo the assertion of the separation from it. Anybody who thinks they're making progress towards that is doing what? Asserting the ego, asserting the separate one. So how does a real spiritual life unfold? If it's not about saying, I studied this teaching and this experience and I understand that, I'm struggling with this, I'm overcoming this. What if it's none of that? What is it? It's to locate yourself as the true I, the sacred I, and when the false I plays out its game or tries to live you as your experience and your knowledge, you have to recognize and release it. It's a very beautiful, subtle dance. But most people think their ego I is going to discover the spiritual truth, and they're going to succeed at it. It doesn't work like experience. In the world of experience, if you keep working at something honestly and keep applying yourself, you figure it out and you succeed at it. You can't apply that to this. You have to locate the true I. And hopefully you do that in relationship to your guru. You feel she is the location of that. And in that relationship, I say, wait a minute, what are you doing? Right? It says, stay vulnerable here. Stay located here. Stay as the open heart. Don't leave it to assert what? What are you always trying to assert? I'm getting spiritual. Right? I'm getting spiritual. Right? Now, if you're at your job and you do an honest job and you figure out a mistake you're making, correct it, you could say, I figured this out. Good. That's where that works. In experience. It doesn't work here. Because what? It only works in relationship to the location of the true self, which is your guru. So if your guru doesn't see that humility, that open heart, and just sees you making up this whole story about your identity as a spiritual aspirant, you're not located as I am. You're not holding to my heart. You're holding to your false self and asserting it, being independent from me. And that doesn't work. So over the years, meeting different people from different places and situations and backgrounds, and having this long commitment to all of you, and to every true honest seeker in the world, or dishonest one, they cross my path, I guess. What happens? I'm still the same here. I'm still located exactly as I am, as a heart. So what does each person have to do to come to be? The same thing you have been instructed to do.
Okay.
So different places, like I said, backgrounds, spiritual backgrounds, religious backgrounds, there's not a vulnerability and intimacy directly with the sacred. People just have an idea of sacred, and they try to assert it into their lives. You say, being in love would be a great experience, so you just try to assert it. You walk around, okay, I have this great idea, I gotta do it. And then you look around and you try to fix it to somebody, and then you try to make it happen, and they try to respond to it or run away from you or whatever they do, right? But in this case, the divine is slippery. And when there's any ego, the divine is not being lived there. It's not being recognized. You cannot bond to the divine through your ego. You only can bond to the divine through the release of your ego, the surrender of your ego. So how do you get a sense of progress on the spiritual path?
Seems you give up the need for it.
The need for that idea. Yeah. Like a real spiritual experience for someone who needs to know progress. A real experience would frighten them to death. It would be so terrifying. Not to be located as your ego, judging the spiritual experience, making it make you feel more spiritual. You would, if I'm not the one to get it, to receive it, to understand it, to know it, to be special by it. No, the sacred's bigger than your ego. Your ego is a false eye, it's not even real. This whole world is a dream, being dreamed by people who are bonding to certain ideas. I want to fall in love, I want to have money, I want to be looked up to, and you go over these dreams, and you bond to these dreams, and you try to assert them in your experiences, and sometimes it seems like you're getting a little success with it, but most of the time it just seems frustrating, bewildering, and distracting, and disturbing. And there's no peace in any of it. And the heart gets a little crunched and more crunched as you do that activity. And it's just a big ego trip everyone's on. A big, I'm a separate one entitled to get fulfilled, and that's why I'm here. You're entitled to die, that's all you're entitled to. There's no fulfillment. There's no fulfillment. What is there?
Peace?
What's that?
Peace?
Yeah, but where is it located? Yeah. So if there's 5 gurus in the world, 10 gurus, 50 gurus, 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 gurus in the world, there's the opportunity for everyone to realize true self. That's the only purpose of any life. But most people are busy with bonding to some idea to get their ego fulfilled, all the while being disturbed by all of it, feeling a lot of displeasure in the little pleasure. So back to the competition. This isn't a competition. So over the years I've heard and seen and been a part of your experience and seen that you're making up your spiritual life. You're making up your identity. And you're making up how good you're doing or how bad you're doing. But mostly you make up how good you're doing, because that's what the ego's about. The ego always goes about thinking like, that girl likes me even if she doesn't look at you, right? Or, the ego's always congratulating. I'm really good at this job, or I'm really good musician, or whatever. It's always going around congratulating itself instead of really looking at what you're doing in your experience. And it's always in competition with everybody. It's not really in a relatable relationship with anybody. Nobody really notices anybody. No one really cares about each other's heart and the feeling and the growth of that heart to open itself more and more as true I, as true reality. Everybody's feeling disassociated in their mad drive for ego fulfillment and crazy and isolated. And there's more people in the world than there ever's been.
Yeah.
It's so many people you can love. It's amazing. But somebody dies, and instead of thinking like, there's 8 billion more people to love, get on it. You're like, oh, I never love again. You didn't love yet. That's the thing. You haven't loved yet. If love is your possession, you haven't loved yet. If the person can leave and come and go or die, and that disrupts your love, you haven't loved yet. You haven't recognized where the heart is located. Where is it located? Unrecognized. I'm unrecognized in you, but here I'm recognized as this form. So the trick is, how do you recognize me as you, the true heart? I'm not a separate one. I'm not in competition with you. I'm not trying to win at something. I'm not trying to get fulfilled. I'm trying to show you the true spiritual experience, this awakening of your heart. And then you can't be mean, sad. You can't be crabby and selfish and righteous. You just can't do it. It's not even possible. And so if you see that arise, that form of ego, that form of competition ego come up, recognize it, release it. You see someone engaging it with you, recognize it and release it in them and say, hey, that's it. That's the ego being in competition right now. So everybody thinks that their assertion of ego is actually a spiritual purpose they're on.
Understanding in the moment,
Yeah.
you know, you're
Yeah.
glorifying it
Yeah.
to yourself.
Yeah, that's a goal.
So ego makes up the spiritual life, makes it up, qualifies it, makes it up, says how it's doing. Then the guru walks in the room and says, oh, what's this? This is the worst painting I've ever seen. What are you talking about? And you're like, what? What do you know? You know? What do you know about anything spiritual? Everybody can say, I love love, but then everybody's busy. And then it's like, well, what does someone do to show that they are loving? You know, what kind of energy do they bring? What kind of behavior do they do to show that? It can't just be so inside you, you know, you can say, oh, I love to paint, and I love it so much, and then you're not actually doing it, you know? So how do you bring a new behavior and pattern to each other? It's not like we're in competition with each other, get out of the way, but, hey, I recognize you, and here's my regard for you. Be creative with that. Come together and say, you know, we come in the room, but we're not looking at each other. Or we're talking, but we're talking at each other. We're not really recognizing each other. And make comments about, hey, this isn't it. And try something. Try to create something that other person feels intimate with you. They feel that your heart's present with them. Try it, you know? Yeah. But you have to bring energy. Yeah. So if you come into the room and you're sitting and waiting for the meeting to begin, look at everybody and give them your regard and say, hello, how are you? And do things. You see someone struggling, help them. Or you see that you're all present in the room, nothing's happening, nothing unpleasant, but there's still no energy there. There's no relationship. There's no relatability. And to break down all the walls of that competition, you know, actually say each person in the room has been a valuable companion in this life to you. And you want to respect that and acknowledge that. Everything is fine as it is, but without the open heart first, It's just what it is. Just an object. Just a modification of consciousness. Just an illusion. But when you bring love into the room, everything becomes infected by love. Then everything seems wonderful too. And that's what being a real spiritual aspirant brings into the room. Every room they're in. They're not like the center of attention particularly or anything, but everybody feels better. It's like having good vibes, you know? You don't have to assert yourself and tell people, have good vibes. You are good vibes. It's like the sun shining. Everybody feels, oh, it's been raining so long, the sun's out, it feels wonderful. So in being intimate with each other, bring love into the room as your very self, and bring love to others in the room as well. And the best practice you have is with each other, because in our lives together, I've always asked you to be responsible in your reliability, be responsible in your life, generate your life and your experience in a responsible way that serves living the open heart, instead of serving the ego and its competitive impulses, and doesn't care that people have to lose so it can win. In fact, enjoys power over people and laughs. Right? There's always got to be a loser so the winner can feel better. So we're gonna release spiritual competition and not do that ego trip anymore, and help each other with that, and also bring the love. Saying, wow, I've been with her forever. We've been on the spiritual path. We've been with Santosha. And mostly we've been doing our own egoic competitive form of the spiritual life. But, we're in this here together. So you can see, most people can't really call it.
Yourself.
Yeah, you can't see it yourself. You think the very thing that's so great is really spiritual, and it's not. It's the worst form of ego. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know.
It is.
That's how deep the delusion, is, and this culture supports that delusion too. If the culture really didn't approve, if the leaders and people in general, like me and Ellie, felt like, what's this concept about being rich? If nobody approved of that concept, what would happen?
Fall apart.
It would fall apart.
Yeah. To balance
It's
out.
not real on its own. People have to believe in it and want it
Generate
and
it.
love it and generate it.
Given,
And yeah, it's a lot of work to generate that idea and stick to it, especially when it's the cause of a lot of suffering that's not really working, that idea. There's a lot of ideas that the world and the culture is generating that are making people into really sad sacks, unhappy people. And most people think those ideas are real, and you're just going to be stuck. You're just stuck with it. And they actually are led to believe that those ideas are actually good, and if you're the winner, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So whoever doesn't like these ideas are just losers. In other words, that shows you're the loser because you don't like this idea. But enlightenment is not making you do anything. It's not forcing you to any position. It's just the open heart, and it's just waiting to be recognized by you. But if you're asserting and you're so righteous about your separate self winning at this, winning at life, winning at experience, maybe you'll win in an experience. Maybe you'll win some. Maybe you'll lose some. Everybody wins some and lose some. But you never look at all you win and say, wow, that was a pile of winning, do you? No one ever looks at their life and says, I got A's in geography, I went to Maui, I took a lot of great pictures, I learned this instrument, I wrote this great song. No one has a list that of all the things they did that they succeeded at and said, wow, look.
Doesn't take
Why?
the earning away.
When is it ever enough?
Yeah, doesn't take the yearning away.
They
No.
want more.
Yeah, it's never enough. Why not?
Because it's not
Not real.
Because it's not there. Yeah. Real, true happiness, real, true self is not there in experience. You don't find it there. So that's why you never feel it's in the room. It's as you. You're still looking. And you're looking in experience. Wow, we did all this stuff all these years that we worked at and we succeeded at. And we don't have a sense of fulfillment. So you do all that and you don't come away with a sense of fulfillment that is profound,
Yes.
that is satisfaction, that is satisfying.
Mhm.
Not at all. Wow, what a jip.
Yeah.
That's why you might as well just go for enlightenment. Wake up, live in the heart.
Yeah.
Allow whatever experience is coming into the room be also the heart. Be intimate with life. Be intimate with everything and everyone. You know, only egos are going to get hurt by other egos. You know what I mean? The heart doesn't get hurt. What does the heart get?
Vulnerable, wounded, and still loves.
Well, the funny thing about the heart, in experience, it can appear to be wounded, but it recovers so fast that it almost feels like it didn't happen. You know? You know, like all the people you love and you're still mad at because they're not loving you in the way you want. I don't care. They're still the same to me. They're still just either on an ego trip and not having the great fortune and benefit of living as the heart, right? You know, all the people you don't want to ever see again, well, they could walk into the room right now, but if you were enlightened, it would just be what?
Another moment.
Another moment of the heart,
Enlightenment.
of enlightenment. You know, you bring the heart to experience instead of experience determines what the heart can do, what the heart can feel, what the heart can live. So there's kind of the wound, but it heals so fast, like it's almost like there's no wound.
Sounds like it's healing as soon as it.
Yeah, you know, like Wolverine or who other characters. The Flash,
Yeah.
just regeneration.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, yeah, it just heals so fast. You feel it, it's over. You know, other people have an experience that's devastating and it goes on for years and years, how long they're going to take to get over it, and they never really get over it. They're just kind of mad it even happened. Yeah. So you don't want to miss 1 minute of your enlightenment by doing all that. You want to just be happy, right?
Yeah.
But you're aware of suffering, and you're aware of your own suffering. But it has nothing to do with the heart. The same way, fulfilling and trying to get fulfilled in experience has nothing to do with the heart either. You're never going to arrive at a life and say, wow, here's my list. Read it, Ellie. Read it. Come on, look at all the things I accomplished. You know? Like, I've been married to this guy for 50 years. Give me some kind of marriage award, you know? Yeah, stick it out, and you will have accomplished a lot of things. But will you feel really fulfilled? Well, nobody has yet. Pat's 75 and says, no, I've done a lot of things in my life. I've succeeded at a lot of things I've attempted, and I don't feel fulfilled. So where does fulfillment come from? Being awake is the heart. But you don't have a sense of, oh, look at all the things I accomplished. You don't have a sense of that. And you don't have a sense of all the things that you suffered that you have to carry around with you for the rest of your life. I don't have a sense like, look at all these amazing paintings I did. Oh, look at all the people that hurt me. Oh. I don't have any of that.
Thank goodness.
And you don't either.
Yeah.
What do you got? You came in innocent. You're innocent while all this is happening, and you'll be innocent when you're leaving. You're just an innocent. You're just a heart. Just innocent. Nothing touches you. Yet, you're vulnerable to everything. Wow, how does that work? You know, find out. Live where I live. Come in. Doors open. All right. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.